Every Van Halen album is my favourite Van Halen album, but Diver Down, much derided by critics, holds a special place in my heart. Released in 1982, Diver Down garnered this 2-star review from Rolling Stone. Strip away the 4 cover versions, the 3 brief instrumentals and the minute-long goof on Happy Trails, and Van Halen's 5th album, Diver Down, suddenly seems like a cogent case for consumer fraud. Yes, that's correct, there are only 4 original songs that have vocals among Diver Down's dozen tracks. So yeah, 5 covers, 3 awesome instrumentals, and 4 Van Halen songs. But a big thing for me was always the sense of fun that David Lee Roth era Van Halen projected. The humour is so important. I love a band that doesn't take themselves too seriously. So yes, Eddie blew our minds with his church organ-like Cathedral, cleverly combining volume swells with a delay pedal and that masterful left hand. And his cheeky Spanish guitar parody mimicking Paco de Lucia or Carlos Montoya with his amazing right hand tremolo picking and again the left hand hammers. It's crazy. But there are plenty of YouTube clips showing you how to do that stuff. Way better than I can do. But beyond those amazing moments, here's what Diver Down taught a younger me.
Rock appreciation.
All those covers. The Kinks, Martha and the Vandellas, Roy Orbison, cowboy music. As a young teen who could play passable covers of You Really Got Me and Sultans of Swing, I suffered from a condition common to firstborn sons, chronic arrogance. This ailment saw me deride and negate everything from K-San to KC and the Sunshine Band. But my obsessive adulation of this band meant that I was forced to appreciate genres and artists that I would have otherwise turned my nose up at. I mean, Roy Orbison, really? You know, to me as a kid, he was always just some weird looking bloke in shades that crooned songs about heartbreak. Dancing in the Streets, this would have been my Motown initiation. You know, a white dork with some Black Sabbath and Dire Straits cassettes and a few Kiss records. There was just no avenue to experience this stuff in my tiny world. Techniques, alternate picking. I'm a pretty clumsy and slow guitarist, not at all natural technique-wise. So that intro to Hang 'em High became a very difficult and very beneficial alternate picking exercise. And I still can't do it up to speed. I can kind of scrape it in, but if you slow that down, you'll hear, you know, accidental hitting a string on the way back up and that sort of stuff. You listen to Eddie play it, and every note, there's conviction in every pick stroke and groove. Here's how it actually goes, so you can try it at home. Technique number 2, pinch harmonics. As a huge Ace Frehley fan and having flogged the shite out of Van Halen 1, I was already very aware of pinch harmonics, but I loved how Eddie applied these to the otherwise simple riff of the full bug. It was here that I realised that there was more than one sweet spot down there. He sweeps his hand gradually along the string, bringing a heap more harmonic complexity into the song. It made it you could make it sound like a flanger. I mean, that's what a flanger does, right? It sweeps through the range and amplifies the secondary harmonics that make up the note rather than the fundamental. Technique 3, compositional soloing. Listen to Edward's solo on Hang 'Em High. Rather than just simply stringing together a heap of cool licks, the whole thing has a theme, which he plays around with in some really clever ways. It's got that little... I mean, that's already really cool. It's just a descending diatonic line, but he's playing the root note of each chord that's happening at the same time. So the D, the A, and the E. And then he plays around with that, like he's got that cool little tapping one that he does in there. He plays it an octave lower. Yeah, just fills in with cool licks in between that theme. Additionally, it showed me how he plays to the chords. Rather than just simply going, oh, cool, the pentatonic scale fits again. The whole solo is very melodic. He's really thinking of the chords. So, the first chord is in E, and he plays, which is, like your third in E to your fifth in E. Then the next chord is B, starts on the fifth in B. They're both the B chord. Then the next chord's A. Basically the same phrase in A. Then it goes C and G within a bar. And he plays like a... So it's a little descending... Oop, yeah. And then the next part is like a repeating D to E chord section. And he plays D in a D triad. But really a slow bend on that top note. Then an E, same thing. Oh, missed that note. Repeats it. This time bends a little double stop from a C and an E and an E again. Then it's into that part that I mentioned before. Now that lick there is super messy. The whole thing's really sloppy. I read somewhere that Ed said that he played that solo better at live at every gig than he did on the album. And when you listen to it, there's an isolated version, isolated guitar track version on YouTube that I found today. And yeah, he's really sloppy. So I've guessed what I think he was trying to do for that run. You hear the start of it. It sounds like that. And then there's like a few missed notes and open strings, and then that thing at the end. And I know his patterns, and I know the sort of thing that he would do and think. So I reckon what he was going for is... Sounds great anyway. Yeah, that's cool. Technique number 4, blues licks. Now, we all know Edward was a big fan of Clapton. All his licks were bluesy. You should check out the Starfleet project where he jammed with Brian May. There's like an 8-minute 12 bar on there, and it's awesome. He's such a blues player when you hear him do that stuff. But he's got such lightning speed, sometimes it's really hard to recognise those things. It was only when I slowed down his runs to match my limited abilities that I really realised how brilliantly bluesy some of these licks are. So there's this run from Secrets where he does like... John Mayer is still doing that lick. But this one is even cooler. So slowed down, I mean that's nowhere near up to the speed he does it. That's as good as I can get it. But slowed down, it's like... Notice how he's got the ninth and the sixth in the scale. But then he uses the flat 5 without using the 4th. So the 4th doesn't appear in there at all. So I'm playing it in A flat. It's no doubt in A, tuned down a half step. But that's just so cool. Like at a slow speed, that lick just sounds amazing to me. That's brilliant. So clever. And you know the most amazing thing is that Eddie says that the solo in Secrets was a first take. I kind of laid back and it fit the song. Ridiculous. Technique number 5, any note fits, playing outside. So hearing this next run from the Full Bug as a kid is the reason I smile so much to this very day. What's going on, Ed? That's unreal. Look, that was probably the first thing that I sat down diligently with my vinyl copy of Diver Down and worked out note for note to work out what the hell was going on. You know, it's so ear-catching. The song's in E. It's a pretty straight rock song in E, E, A, B. What he's doing there is starting in the E minor pentatonic, but then just going up another minor third. So the same distance again. So from the 12th fret, the 15th to the 18th. So that's, a 3-fret jump, 3-fret jump. So that's a diminished arpeggio, basically. But then what he's doing is playing the exact same thing, obviously, as you saw me do, on the next string, the next string, the next string, right across. So that just keeps bringing in weirder and weirder notes that should not be present in a straight-ahead rock song in E, where you'd be playing an E pentatonic scale. But then he resolves it by going... So at the end... And then after that, it goes straight into a blues scale lick. So learning that showed me that you really can play anything if you play it fast enough. But no, if you play it with conviction and if you resolve it like he does at the end there, it's magnificent. It takes the song to another level, introduces a whole flurry of notes that we hadn't heard yet, and then still brings us back to where we're nice and safe in the blues scale at the end. So I read that Eddie said he was listening to heaps of Holdsworth, Alan Holdsworth around this time. I mean, he was always a huge Alan Holdsworth fan. I mean, what guitarist isn't? And it is a very Holdsworth style run, those big stretches, but it's Alan's playing was far less predictable and pattern based than that sort of thing. But yeah, you can hear that influence. Fantastic. Technique number 6, jazz comping and music theory. Big Bad Bill. A Big Bad Bill may sound to many like a throwaway, mess around, bit of fun that probably doesn't deserve the valuable real estate it takes up on a VH album. But this song taught me so much. I'm going to go acoustic for this one. So jazz comping. The strumming style that Edward employs here is applicable to any jazz pop standard that you might find yourself faced with at your wedding gig. You know, think Sinatra, Bublé, Harry Connick Jr., Chet Baker. This is how you accompany tunes in that genre. So the strums are cut short. I'm just playing an F chord there, but what I'm doing is staccato strumming. I'm relaxing my grip at the end of every strum, and I'm slightly accenting each second one. And then your fills become adding the swing upbeats after beats 2 and or 3 and or 4. So that's jazz comping. That's the standard style. I'm not saying that every single jazz song has that, because jazz is as big as any other genre. That was my first exposure to. I mean, I'd heard it because my dad played great jazz albums when I was growing up, but that was the first time I'd heard. I was listening to Van Halen albums for the guitar and the humour. So it was at the forefront, and I sat down and I worked it out. And that brings me to the second point here, the triad voicings. I realised that you need to sit in between the members of a band. So jazz guitarists quite often hang around triads, so 3-note chords, on the middle few strings, pretty much leaving your top string and your bottom string out of the mix, because then you stay out of the way of the bass player. You stay out of the way of any solo instruments or vocalists. You become strictly a rhythm instrument, just filling in that nice mid-range, warm little space there. So this was such a valuable lesson to me, because until I listened to this song so intently and worked it out, that was not a skill I possessed or recognised I needed. So the triad voicings, the majority of the chord voicings in Big Bad Bill are limited to the D, G and B strings. Eddie throws in a couple of bass notes here and there, but he's staying out of everyone's way. He's not crowding the bass or the melody. Also, his little strum fills are always tastefully in places where Dave isn't singing. Then the final thing, the final huge lesson that this song taught me, was that even though the progression sounds kind of twee, kind of corny and obvious, it nonetheless contains a couple of intriguing modulations, I would say. At this stage of my musical development, I was aware that 7th chords were used to move us up a 4th, or to go back to the 1 chord. They're certainly used that way in this song. The G7 to the C, the D7 to the G minor, the A7 to modulate from the F to the D minor. But in the chorus, this happens. That's the married life done changed him somehow. So that's an F to an F7 to an A7. So that F to F7, I mean, listen to this. That's where it should go, to a B flat. A billion songs do that. we're on a chord, we play that chord as a 7th, we go up a 4th. It's what we do. It's what songs do. But this song goes. And it sounds fantastic. And so right then and there, I went, the bits of music theory I've been learning, standard theory rules are really just suggestions based upon what we've become accustomed to hearing. There's no music police that are going to bust down your door if you put chords in any different order. The other unintuitive use of a dominant 7 chord occurs just after that. That's where it goes from B flat to G7, which takes us straight back to the F. Now again, the G7 should go to C. You can hear that as soon as I do it. But in this case, it skips that C, goes straight back to F. And that struck me as hugely strange because G7 is not a chord that is going to lead me to F. Not in my previous experience. But it works great. It works great. And you know what? The same modulation happens in Tequila Sunrise by the Eagles. And man, those guys can write a chord progression. With the benefit of many years of experience, I understand now that the G7 there is basically like a B diminished. So we're going from B diminished to F, which you can hear that works quite well. And the reason is we end up with a couple of leading tones taking us to the F. So all three of those chords have an F note in them as well, which kind of pins it all together as well as that leading tone. So B diminished is very similar to a G7. It's only one note different from a G7. So that's what's going on there. But that F7 to A7 thing, I don't know. Fantastic. I also spent a lot of time mastering that funky little acoustic intro to the full bug. You know, David Lee Roth played that intro. But Dave gets written off as a bit of a buffoon and a comic book character rather than a musician. But he really does possess a great bluesy swing and swagger and feel with just the right amount of slop. Technique number 7, fingerstyle staccato picking. I don't know what to call it, but this technique Eddie used on little guitars became pretty cool for a while there. Although I have to actually give credit to Angus Young for this one because I was first exposed to it on For Those About to Rock, which was released a year earlier in 81. I'm pretty sure it goes like that. But, you know, Angus, he really made that his own. He did that on a lot of albums through the 80s. Great technique. I don't know what it's called though. Fingerstyle staccato picking. Another simple thing I learned from the full bug was Eddie's intro riff, which moves between, so the song's in E, but he moves between a D and a C sharp, it sounds like, for the first time, like, just a funky little, you know, another Van Halen great swing feel song, great shuffle. Immediately I thought, this is so clever because there's hardly any notes in this thing, but it sounds fantastic. But what's he doing here? You know, why is he going to a C sharp note? This seemed really odd to me. Obviously, I was used to every Black Sabbath, Deep Purple, Led Zeppelin riff adhering strictly to the pentatonic scale. You know, that's all that stuff. So when he's in E, well, all of a sudden he's got this note in. But then all of a sudden I clicked. You know, it's basically a twist on. But there's a couple other things that go on there that I really love as well. So one is his pinch harmonics on that thing, but the other thing that blew my head off was the lick that he puts in between. So it's like, he does it a couple of times throughout the song. It's a great sounding lick, and again, it pulls out, it grabs your ear, it sticks out. The lick itself is interesting structurally because it's fourths, stacked fourths. It's a D, a G, and a C. But what are we doing here? You know, he's just played however many times a C sharp, which is the standard boogie chug. So he's suggesting that. But then his first lick has a C note on top of it, a C natural. This is the sort of thing that blows my mind about Eddie Van Halen. And, you know, to this day, I'm wondering, what was he thinking? Because it doesn't make harmonic sense to me, but it sounds amazing. Was it like a fluke that he liked and so repeated and retained in the arrangement of the song? Or was he hearing some sort of D11 or, you know, A minor going past in his head and suggested that in his lick? So many questions I would ask that man. Anyway, I could talk about Diver Down forever, but that'll do for tonight, for this week. Thanks, guys. Don't forget to like, and if you subscribe, please hit that bell so that you don't miss these cracking essays. My verbal diarrhea. I'll see you next week.